Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. My name is Tanner Dagenais, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. On this podcast, it's my opportunity and my pleasure to be able to share everything I know about self-sabotage, but also to be able to share other people's self-sabotage stories because it's so important that we know that no matter who we are, where we come from, or what we have experienced in life, that we're all able to overcome self-sabotage. Today I'm very excited because we have Karen Danielle here on the line, who's a freedom from self-sabotage coach and a holistic lifestyle practitioner with the Czech Institute. Very excited to be able to hear her story and just talk with her some more. So thank you for coming on the podcast today, Karen.
Hi, thanks, Tanner. Yeah, thank you for having me. So my full name is Karen Mendell, but on Facebook I go by Karen Danielle, um, which is kind of confusing. I should probably look at changing that. But yeah, thank you for having me. So I think it's great, the podcast that you're doing and kind of having the coaches come on and share their story. So I took the self-sabotage coaching program, I think it was 2020. I know you took it as well. And it kind of was fitting for me just because I had felt like I had gone through a lot of my self-sabotaging habits and I had overcome a lot of them, but I still wasn't completely there yet. So just kind of a little about my story. With my family growing up as a child, I was around, we didn't eat very healthy. So lots of junk food was surrounded by our household. Alcohol was a big thing. Like my family was heavy drinkers. My parents, my grandparents, it was just normal to be drinking all the time. So then growing up, that's kind of what I thought was normal. So obviously that's kind of what I started doing. So I got drunk for the first time at the age of 12, and kind of all of my high school years just drinking a lot. And from there, I think it was like 19 when I started doing drugs. So I was kind of always in with maybe the wrong crowd, I guess. But I realized now that I was doing all of that to try to fit in. I always wanted to fit in, and drinking kind of made me more easygoing. I was pretty shy and quiet. So when I was drinking and doing all that, I was fitting in with people. I was part of like the cool group of people. So I realized now that pretty much everything I was doing throughout my teens and into my 20s was me just trying to fit in. So then, yeah, I started doing drugs, started doing like cocaine and ecstasy, and it was a terrible time. When I think about it now, it makes me feel like really icky. Like so staying up for like a whole weekend, just doing drugs and drinking. And that's kind of like what the group of friends did. And that's what I was doing to fit in. So then when I got to my mid 20s, kind of stopped that, but I was always doing the drinking. And I would drink to the point that I would binge drink to the point that I wouldn't remember anything. It was terrible. And I was always the girl that was always drunk, right? Like I would drink too much. I could never just have like one or two drinks. It was like, no, I'm going to be drinking until like 4 or 5 in the morning and not remember what happened the next day. And then I was always hungover. I was always sick. I would have anxiety. Like towards the end of that, I was always getting anxiety. Like the next day, I would be on the couch and like, oh my God, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like I can't breathe. So it was terrible. And then probably I was 27, I guess, when I met my husband, my now ex-husband, and started dating him. But it was always kind of revolved around alcohol as well. So I was still doing a lot of drinking. Um, then I had my son at age 30, and I kind of slowed down on the drinking. But since it's been about 3 years, so I haven't drank in 3 years, I just realized this isn't serving me anymore. Towards the end of it, I realized I was only drinking because that's what people do. Like you get together with family, you get together with friends. Oh, let's have a drink. Like, let's go out and have a drink. But it was not healthy for me. So I completely stopped drinking. I haven't done drugs. It's been a long, long time. I stopped that in my 20s as well. And then I think it was when I was 29 or 30, I started, I guess, having my awakening, for lack of a better word. So I started kind of looking into like things that were happening and like what is really going on in the world and some of those truths. So I had this like major awakening, and I did it all on my own because I didn't have a single person that could relate to me. So I was going through and uncovering all this information, and I was trying to tell my husband at the time, I was trying to tell my family and friends, and they just thought I was crazy. So I was like that crazy girl on Facebook, posting about conspiracy, that conspiracy, but it was isolating and so lonely because I didn't know a single person that thought like me other than people I met in internet groups like online. So I was trying to kind of share this information with family and friends and my husband, and it did not go well. So I lost a lot of friends because we weren't aligned anymore. I pretty much lost all of my friends. And also, it was the starting point to the breakup of the relationship with my husband. So also we had a son. When I started having my son, then I really started digging deep and I started like really looking in the health side of things. So he started only eating organic food. And then I started looking at EMFs. I started looking at vaccines, and I kind of just kept progressing. It was like, I did one step at a time, but it just kept going and going and going. And then I think for my husband, it was just too much. It was like when he met me, I was just this person that, we would go out and hang out and drink on weekends and go for dinner. And then I just became this different person because I changed. And once I knew all this stuff, I couldn't just go back to the old person that I was. So it caused a lot of issues in our marriage. And at the end, we completely grew apart. So that was hard because it was a very isolating time, right? You're by yourself and you don't have any support system. And then I ended up going to a vaccine protest for childhood vaccines when they were trying to mandate them in school because I was fighting for my son. This was well before COVID. And I ended up meeting a friend. I just, on a whim, like we decided to carpool together, and I met her and we became good friends. And from there, I just slowly started meeting like a great network of people and like-minded people, and just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a new chapter, I guess. Meeting totally different people. And so now separated from my husband in the last 2 years, but I've been living, me and my son together for the last year. And I've had a lot of growth, even just in the last year. Just now I'm starting to do like shadow work and uncovering childhood trauma that I had as a kid. And it's all kind of piecing together. So like peeling back all the layers. So I've had a lot of personal growth as well in the last year, which has been really good. But and just done a lot of like self-care work. So like meditation and hypnosis and all of the stuff that people should be doing, just to take care of themselves. And I had to work really hard on like starting to love myself again, because I realized that was a big missing piece for me. So I've been really doing that. And then, so I did the self-sabotage course, coaching course. I guess it's been 2 years now. And then I also did a holistic lifestyle coaching course, which I know you've done as well, the Check Institute course. So I did that. And my goal is just to kind of help people go through some of the things that maybe I've experienced, or use some of the things I've experienced to kind of help people on their journey as well.
That's so awesome. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people kind of go down that path where they start to realize all the stuff that's going on. They're like, "What?" And then they like I know like I try like sharing with all my family and friends, and they were just like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you're crazy, right?" What was the thing that kind of got you to like start looking into that? I know like you were kind of coming off your drugs and stuff like that. Was just that like what was the first kind of thing that you found on that
I
path? Do you
don't
remember?
I don't know. People ask me this and I don't really know. I think it was actually years ago I started having like little inklings, like years ago before that I watched the movie Zeitgeist or whatever. And that I realized like all of that to me like totally soaked in my mind, but it wasn't really the turning point. So I think I just started like taking in all these seeds, but didn't really piece it all together. And then I started looking into 9/11, to be honest. That was like the
Yeah.
piece. And then I was like, wow. And then I started looking more into the health side of things when I had my son. Because then I was like looking at GMOs and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feed him non-organic food. So my son only ate organic food from the time he was born. I did a lot of other things I shouldn't with him that I didn't know at the time, but I started slowly piecing it together with the birth of my son. And then, so like organic food for him. And then it kind of went a little bit further. And then I started eating organic. And then I was started eating organic produce. And then I started eating organic meat and then organic cheese. And then I looked at water filters. So I just kept going piece by piece. And then that was like testing because we had a hydro line behind our house. And I was like, okay, that's not good. So then I started looking into that. It just kind of kept going, like progressing more and more and more. And then as that was happening, my relationship kept going farther and farther apart because he he was really supportive kind of at first, but then at a certain point, he was just like, oh my gosh, like you're not the same person. You're crazy. Like, you've changed. And I was like, yeah, I have changed, but I changed and I think it's a good thing. But for other people that are not on the same page, it can kind of be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot because once you start to realize like pretty much everything around us is kind of designed in a way to kind of keep us down, like the food system, like the school
Yeah.
system, it's like everything, like the medical system. Sorry about that. Everything's kind of like, and it can be scary, and people just don't really
Yeah.
want to, face that fact that. I mean, I think everyone knows like the government and politics is like corrupt and stuff, but then like they don't want to admit like the health and the food and medicine
Yeah.
and everything else is.
There's a lot of cognitive dissonance, and that's kind of what it's been like with my family and friends. And I used to get so frustrated and so mad, but now I've kind of just gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, you can plant the seed, I can speak my truth, I can help people that want to be helped, but I will not waste energy on trying to help people or wake people up if they don't want to, because everybody's on their own journey, and some people will just never see it and some people will. And it's just kind of like I've let that go because it was exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important to not tie yourself down, like trying to convince and save every single person as much as we want to.
Yeah, and you can't because everybody kind of has to save themselves. They can get help to do it, but at the end of the day, everybody's on their own journey and their own path, and some people's path is not in line with ours, I guess. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
very much agreed. What convinced you to start like doing like the self-sabotage coaching and like the holistic lifestyle practitioner with Paul Check? Was it you just saw what they were doing, you're like, man, I got to be a part of this?
Yeah, so I just really want to help people. I know that's what I meant to do. I meant to help people. And I know that my story is kind of like how I can help people with what I've overcome and like the knowledge I've gained. So then I was following Jason for a really long time. And I actually did a coaching call with him. And then as soon as he had this course, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. I was actually really excited. I was going to go to Cornwall to do it. I think a lot of us were going to go.
Yeah.
COVID shut everything down. So unfortunately, we didn't get to go and kind of connect in person. But as soon as I heard it, I just knew it was something I wanted to do, especially because of the self-sabotaging that I have done in my life, right? Like it was so much for so many years that kind of fits that I could now take that knowledge. And I really didn't understand how the subconscious mind played into all of that either. It was like, okay, why am I doing all of this? It's only been in the last 2 years that I'm actually putting it all together. Like, this is why I was drinking. This is why I was doing drugs. I was bullied in elementary school. That's why I had this need to fit in so much in high school and in my 20s. Or just even how I was raised as a child. And we would have, for example, I just realized this like a few months ago, but as a child, we would have snack night. So every night, every Friday and Saturday, we would get a bowl of chips or candy and a chocolate bar. That was like snack night. And I've realized now I was at one point like binge eating and emotional eating. And I tie that back to that feeling I had as a child because that made me feel comfort, right? That's tying me back to my childhood frequency. It's like, oh, I'm like feeling overwhelmed. I'm going to like have a snack, like junk food that I don't typically eat. But it was me kind of wanting to get that feeling again from my childhood. So it's like all of these pieces kind of make us become the person we are. So once we start peeling it back and understanding how the subconscious works and our programming, that's the part that I think I was missing in my journey. And now I'll be able to use that so I can help other people.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I know like learning about the subconscious was so important for me because just like
Yeah.
you, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I know what I want to do, but I kept like sabotaging myself. And I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Cause you always hear people like, oh, you just gotta have the willpower to do it. You just gotta have this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I was like, there's gotta be more to it. There's gotta be more to it than just that. Cause like I feel like I got the willpower. Like I want to do this. But then I get like I would tell myself I'm gonna stop drinking. The next day I'd have a Coke and whiskey in my hand. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah. It's
Um,
always like
yep.
pulling you back to that
Mhm.
same habit. And it's unless you're working on it constantly, it's always going to try to pull you back. Like even me with drinking, like I didn't drink for 3 years. But there was a time in the summer where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have a couple drinks again. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why? It's because I went through a big change. Like going through a separation and being on my own again after 10 years was a big change. And I started, with summer, spending time with people that are drinking. And I'm like, oh, it's my first summer on my own. I can do this. And then I realized, like, why was I doing that? Because I was trying to fit into the herd. I had to really step back and start reprogramming again the last couple months to realize like why I was starting to get pulled in that direction again. And now I pulled myself back out of it. But it's easy, it's natural, it's what everybody instinctively does. And you just have to be conscious and always be working to like stay in that mindset because it is really challenging.
What ways have you been reprogramming yourself for the listeners? I'm sure they're curious.
So for me, I've done a lot of hypnosis. I've been doing the Melissa Peer hypnosis. I've been just implementing a lot of healthy habits. So I started waking up every day at 5 a.m., which everyone keeps saying, like, why would you do that? But I find it amazing. Like, I love it. It's my time. I get 2 hours in the morning. I meditate. I do some meditation called frame technique, which is like you stare at a candle and you put your energy in your hands and your feet, and then it just helps you to like stay in your energy and not, because I'm also very empathic. And one of the things I realized is that I was giving a lot of my energy to other people and like people pleasing, right? So I'm working on just pulling my energy back and like setting boundaries, not people pleasing. So then I'm reading in the morning, like I'm reading always like just learning books. So right now I'm reading the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, I think it's called. Before that, I read a really good book called Attached, which is amazing. I think everyone should read about your attachment style. So then I'm also doing mirror work. So I look into a mirror, and this is helping with like positivity and like self-love and self-worth, which is something that I needed to work on in the last year going through separation. So just looking in a mirror, and I'll say like, I love and accept you, Karen. I love and accept you, Karen. I'll just repeat it over and over. Or I'm willing to change, or just whatever it is that you want to work on, right? But looking with a handheld mirror directly in your eyes is very powerful for your mind to reprogram and just to like feel that power and that love for yourself. And then I also just get my workout in the morning. So yeah, I've kind of started just doing that stuff. I'll have like a detox bath. I've been doing Ho'oponopono meditation, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but I hope I don't mess it up. It's thank you, please forgive me. Oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you just keep saying that over and over. And you can think of somebody that you've had issues with in the past, or someone that you maybe feels have wronged you, or somebody that maybe you have lost connection with, and it's just to kind of let go of that, right? Letting go of whatever that conflict was or whatever that thing was. So that's helping your body to forgive and to let go. So I've just been doing a lot of things like that, just a lot of self work, because I realize I have a lot of childhood trauma that I've now started working through. That all ties back to the self-sabotaging. The other thing too is I just realized this also within the last years. I had a twin when I was born, and he passed away when he was 2 days old. So I didn't realize this, but trauma can be stored as energy in your body. It never goes anywhere. So when I was born, I shared a womb with another human being with a heartbeat for 9 months, and then they were just gone from me. So as a baby, you still hold that trauma. Like I had that vibration and then it was gone. And also my mom almost died giving birth to me. So also, I'm sure for the first year of my life, my mom was grieving a baby and she didn't have that attachment to me. So I'd always felt like this loneliness. I always felt the need to like find somebody, like find a mate. Like even when I was in my 20s, I was always looking for like a boyfriend or for someone to be with. And I kind of wasn't happy because I was always looking for someone, and I was single for like 6 years, and I was like, I'm never going to find anybody. But I think it was the tie to this loneliness, because I had this other person that was connected to me, and then they were just gone. So I've kind of started putting that together. That's why I'm feeling that, because I have this trauma stored in my body energetically that I need to work through. So I see an energy healer, and she's amazing, and she helps me to actually physically get that energy out of my body. It's been really good. So that I've been doing for a couple months now as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, you're doing a lot of different things to
Yeah.
and I'm sure you probably like added them on like piece by piece by piece as kind of like the
Yeah.
same way you were going through your process of like awakening, right?
Yeah, it's one thing at a time. And then just like getting outside, going for walks, grounding, and also just constantly learning. Like I'm always taking a course, I'm always learning something now with my coaching business. I'm constantly learning about, how to market myself or how to put myself out there. So just like now there's a whole new set of challenges and things that I'm learning about. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's fun and exciting. Um, I know you were talking about like doing affirmations like in front of the mirror and stuff. Did you have a lot of like negative thinking when you were like younger and like I know like that's very common. And how did
Yeah.
you start to address that? Was it just like through the affirmations? Is that the main way?
Yeah, so that was one of my biggest things is I always had negative self-talk. And even now I have to catch myself when I'm doing it because I'm my own worst critic. Like even now I have to be like, no, you have to be gentle with yourself. I'm very like regimented with my thinking and then I'm hard on myself if I don't do something. So even now it's constantly like just being conscious of those thoughts and then reprogramming them. But I think, yeah, I've been doing the positive affirmations and then also journaling and just being aware of them because sometimes like there's so many thoughts going through my mind and then I'm not even conscious of the negative self-talk that I'm thinking about. So really for me it was just starting to become aware of it. And then as I started quitting like the drinking and stuff, then I started to love myself more, right? I was always working out, but in my 20s, it's like I would binge drink on a Friday night, go to the bar, drink all night, maybe get like a couple hours sleep. And then I'd go to the gym and do like an hour workout and be like, yeah, I'm so good. I'm so healthy. But like, I actually want to puke because I'm drinking all night. It was so hard on my body. But once I started to like cut out all of that, drinking and then like negative people and then, the healthy eating, again, I was always like, I would eat healthy on the weekdays and then the weekends, it was just like eating whatever, or I would get that emotional eating. So once I started doing that, it really changed my mindset and like how I feel about myself. And then like the self-talk that I was doing to myself changed as well.
Yeah, that's so important to address that self-talk. I know that was something that was major holding me back. Like when I wanted to start this podcast, I wasn't sure about it because I had been so negative with myself about public speaking, and like I feel like that's a very common fear, right? Like people, go into school, like high school and stuff, and like they go in front of the class and they're just like shaking, and I know I was always shaking and sweating and stumbling my words and and um, I had a big part of it was just changing my thinking because like before I go like on any podcast, I'm like it's going to be a great podcast. I'm gonna be confident in my speech, and like I just talk myself up right before it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to actually like go out there and just tell yourself good things, be aware of what you're saying to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's been a challenge for me too. I know I've listened to your podcast and I've heard you say, like, I never wanted to do public speaking. And I'm the same way. And that's something I'm still kind of getting more familiar with is like not caring about what other people think. It's just saying, no, I don't care. And like totally getting out of your comfort zone. Just, it's not in my comfort zone to, be on camera and like film and like, but it's like, but this is me. This is what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter what other people think of me. And I think that's what holds most people back is the fear of what other people think. And just the only way to get over it is, like you said, just doing it and just putting yourself out there. And not everybody's going to like you. And that's okay. And then also getting over that piece of acknowledging that not everybody's going to like you. The people pleaser, and I'm a recovering people pleaser, where it's like, no, I would rather be like the nice girl that everyone likes than be like, no, this isn't meeting my needs or this isn't what I want. So now it's like reprogramming that to making sure that you're not just doing what other people want and you're just putting yourself out there and being authentic.
So important. Um, One part I'm curious about is like television in your home, and like how you've kind of addressed that because I know you probably know as well, just like how like impactful television can be.
Yeah.
So, what have you kind of done with television, and do you kind of limit it from your son, or how does that go?
Yeah, so I don't watch television. I mean, I can't say I'm absolutely perfect. I think I watched maybe a couple shows the last year, and also I'm guilty of watching cheesy Hallmark movies at Christmas. I watched maybe handful of them.
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't watch TV. The only thing I'll watch is like a documentary or, like educational things I'm learning about, but
Mhm.
it's not even on the TV. It's usually like on my phone or computer. But I do have a TV in my house because my son does watch TV and I try to monitor what he's watching. But he usually will watch like one show at my house. He'll watch maybe like 10 minutes in the morning and he'll watch a show at bedtime. And then we'll have like movie night or something in the winter. So it is hard. Like if it was up to me, I would say like absolutely no, you're not watching any TV, but it's harder to do that. Like
Yep.
it's hard. And then especially because I share custody of him with his dad. So it's different, right? So we try to have a happy medium. Like I regulate his TV, but he does watch some.
Yep. Definitely understandable.
Educate him on like I try to educate him on how to reprogram your mind and like everything you listen to, everything you watch, and like he asks questions about it. So I'm trying to teach him from a young age so that he knows this stuff.
Well, that's awesome. Because yeah, I feel like if you like, I sometimes watch TV, and I'm always like looking for like how they're trying to like program
Yeah.
you, and like it's kind of fun to kind of like, oh, look at this, like they're showing us this in the background, and like it's totally leading people towards this. Or like I never realized they had, I'll like go back and watch something from my childhood I used to like, and I'm like, man, like I don't remember seeing that all the time, but like it makes sense why I was drawn to like this like brand or like this certain thing, and then I feel like it's so important to that you're it's so awesome that you're sharing it with your son because like I plan on doing that with my son. How old is your son, by the way?
He's 7. He's gonna be 8 in a couple months.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really awesome that you're able and that you're able to like that you were able to like give him all organic food. I think that's so important. Like really like food I feel like is so important because I know you know that from the Paul Check stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's really like one of the main things I think for like overcoming self-sabotage is just getting yourself clean and getting the right nutrients in your body.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've always again it was a slow process, right? So I started with the dirty dozen because it can be overwhelming too for someone. They hear this and they're like, oh, you just need to go out and eat only organic and only this and only that. So for me, I started with the dirty dozen. So like the top 12
Mm-hmm.
pesticide laden fruits or veggies. And then it kind of just kept going from there. But my son was always organic. So like I would make his own baby food, like I would puree like organic chicken and stuff, but for like the full household. But that's the one thing that I don't like it's my grocery bill is really expensive, but I figure if I'm not doing this now, I'm going to pay for it later, right? So if I'm not focusing on my health now, I'm going to pay for it later. And that's also one of the things I eventually want to like focus on is how to teach families how to eat healthy. And you can eat healthy on a budget, right? Like I spend a lot, but there are ways that people can eat healthy on a budget. I think there's such a lack of education. Like I go to the grocery store and I always look at people's carts and it's sad because like there's actually no real food in there. Like sometimes I'm like there's not one thing that's not chemical ridden. There's no real food in your cart. It's like Pop Tarts and cereal and like processed meats. And it's so I just think that's something I'm really passionate about is like maybe educating families on how they could eat healthy on whatever their budget is because there are ways to do it, right? And I mean you have to make more things from scratch, but sometimes it's so quick. It's just people, it's scary. It's scary to be like, oh, I don't know how to make this, but some things are so easy to do. So yeah, I started with that and yeah, it's a big priority in my house to make sure that we eat like good quality, healthy food.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Um, I had something else in my mind, but I'm blanking on it now. But yeah, I think that yeah, the food is so important. And that's so cool that you want to be able to share that with other people, because I think that's highly needed right now because there's so many people that just like I always blew my mind that we have like the most technology we've ever had. We have the most information we've ever had, the most advanced in tech in science and whatever not. But yet we have like the like highest rates of obesity, disease, and addictions. And it's like, and no one thinks about like the food. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that most of the food is just chemicals. And I read some of the stuff, especially what's targeted towards kids, right? So like the stuff in the kids' food, or like even we went to a Christmas party on Sunday, and my son got like a pre-packaged cookie as like a gift, and I read the ingredients and it was just like I threw it out. He doesn't know it's gone. So that's what I try to do with it. I'll like throw things because it's like there's no way you're eating that. And most people would be like, "Oh, you're so mean not letting him have a cookie." And it's like there's like 25 chemicals in that cookie, and I'll give him like, like my healthy organic cookie. It's not that much better. Like I do buy packaged stuff, but most of it's like organic and fewer ingredients and not chemical ridden. But a lot of people just don't know and they don't even look at it. And yeah, they're just poisoning us with chemicals and hoping that people won't know any better. And yeah, it's so sad. And it's sad too when I see a lot of children now that are overweight and they're so young. And those are the people that I really want to help. Like maybe the parents don't know any better. And I could be like, okay, we could just make like even a few changes, starting small to like get them on the right track so that these kids are not going to be riddled with diseases at such a young age because they're already starting off unhealthy. So it really bothers me when I see like the kids and what it's doing to their health.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I'm so thankful that I started eating healthy before we had our child because we were able to kind of give him that start at the beginning, and then like we make sure like everything in our house is like organic, so like we don't really mess around
Yeah,
on our end.
it's getting harder here because of what's going on with the food shortages. I live in a small town, so I try like I would say like 80 to 90%, but as the time goes on, it's getting harder for me to find a lot of organic things. So just have to be more creative. But yeah, I try as much as possible. If I can't, then that's one of the things too, is I try not to beat myself up over it because that's something I would do before. Just be like, okay, there's no, organic cucumber today. I'll just have to get a regular one. But yeah, as much as possible is organic.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's so important. That point you brought up about like not beating yourself up, right? Because I think when people are going through like their self sabotage journey, they're trying to stop self sabotaging. Like they're like, "Oh man, I just self sabotaged. Why are you doing that? You suck." Like, and they're like beat themselves up, like
Yeah.
verbally beat themselves up, and um, that's just another form of self sabotage because like kind of creates the cycle, and just you got to be kind to yourself. Like I think that's so important. So that's awesome that you have taken
Yeah.
that approach and
That's
and
something I'm still learning, to be honest, because like even though we're self-sabotage coaches, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And that's been one of the most challenging things for me. Like I said before, like just being gentle on myself and not being so hard on myself. Like if I don't do everything perfect or if I don't get everything right, instead of getting like upset about myself, just kind of being like, that's okay, like let it go. It's fine. Just being gentle with yourself. Yeah, because like you said, it is a form of self-sabotage. And then you go through and like you're your own worst critic and you don't need to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And to your point about like not being able to find all the organic food, and that's I feel like you do what you can, and whatever's out of your control, you just that's okay. You just focus on what you can control because to be honest, there's some things that are just out of our control.
Mhm.
Like when you're traveling, like I know I've had to eat like outside of that.
Yeah.
Um, but I always pay attention to how I feel after I eat some of those things. Like if I had to like go out and eat something I wasn't like really in my diet, and I like noticed like, whoa, like that really affected me. Like there's a reason, like and it kind of like reinforces that reason, like why I do eat the way I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now I'm actually doing a candida cleanse for candida overgrowth. So I started out doing a month. I said I was going to go for a month. But now I'm at almost at 10 weeks. So I haven't had any sugar. It's very challenging, but this is one of the things I'm very hard on myself. Like I get into something and then I keep going, but I know that it's not gone yet. Like I've had candida overgrowth for years and I know like I want to feel better. I want to get rid of it. So now I'm at, yeah, 10 weeks. I'm probably going to do 3 months of it. But yeah, so it's been challenging, but that goes to your point with how you feel. So now if I do occasionally like, so I'm not eating any gluten, any carbs really, right? Because you don't want the sugar in your body because that activates the yeast. So like no sugar, not even any fruit, no refined sugar. I haven't had any sweets or anything. But the moment I did, like I had a little bit of rice on Friday and I could instantly feel it because like my body has not had it and I can feel how it made me feel. So it's really, yeah, it's important to be in tune with your body and like know what it needs and what it wants and kind of like listening to your instincts because
Mhm.
it's better than anybody else what your body needs.
Yep, I completely agree with that. Do you do any form of muscle testing? I know that's something Paul Chek I learned from Paul Chek is that the duckbill muscle testing, and
Yeah, I
just
was
I
actually
love
saying
that.
that. As I was talking, I was just thinking about that test. And then you said it. Yeah, I actually haven't done it in a while, but it's something I need to start doing because it really, I did do it a lot and it was very accurate. Like asking your body what it needs, like, do I want to eat this? Yeah, I used to do it and I kind of got away from it, but yeah, it's something that I should be doing. It did work for me every time I tried it. So
Yeah, it's always fun playing around with that. Like, do I want this? Like, no. Then you try eating it, you're like, oh, well, that's probably why I shouldn't have ate it that
yeah,
that time.
exactly. And it is hard, right? Because you go out to, like, especially when you go to functions and parties and stuff. I'm definitely not perfect. I do eat very well, but I'm not perfect by any means. But now that I've been doing this cleanse, it's kind of given me no choice. But it's worth it because I need to heal this. I know that I have this in my body and I need to get rid of it. And I'm not going to give up now because it's already been 10 weeks. So I just need to keep going until I feel better.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's not really about perfection. Like, I think it's kind of like a big point. Like a lot of your stories can talk about like, you're trying to be perfect, but then you realize you shouldn't be going for that.
yeah.
And it's not about perfection, right? It's about just progression and keep moving forward and step by step, kind of like you did for the awakening and for adding in new foods, right? It's just, all right, well, that that didn't work out, or I made a mistake here, but that's okay. Let's just keep going and keep moving forward towards that life that we want.
Yeah, and what I always say, and what I got this from Jason, but progress, not perfection,
Yep.
because it's nobody's perfect. Even like the top people, like Tony Robbins or Marissa Peer, like they're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. So pretending you're perfect doesn't really help anybody, and you have to be authentic. And it's just a matter of progress. So everyone's going to slip back. Everyone's going to self-sabotage, and it's just a matter of saying, okay, you did this, forgive yourself, and then keep going. Because again, it's progress. Just keep moving forward. Even if you take a step back, you keep going. And also, one thing I've had to learn is not to compare myself to other people. And for people that are starting on this self sabotage journey and trying to change habits, is not to compare yourself. You just want to compare yourself to who you were yesterday and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there's a lot of programming for especially women like that you have to compare yourself. You always got to have like the next beauty product so you can look just like that model. And I
Mhm.
know that some of my wife has, been working through a lot of just like that competition and like trying to compare herself to other people. So I love that you just shared that because I think that's so important that you just be better than yourself yesterday and just continue focusing on that instead of, what someone else is doing.
Yeah, because it's hard. It is hard with the way that the media is today. Like you go on TikTok or Instagram, filters, and you see like it's so hard. Yeah, especially for women, not to compare yourself. You see like, all this stuff on TikTok or whatever, and then you're thinking like, okay, most of those people are not real, or they've got filters, or
Mhm.
they've got that. Just and you don't know their story either. You have no idea what they've went through. Maybe they've had their own challenges, and I'm sure they all have. You're just looking at like a surface level photo of a person. So it's really easy to be like, oh, I wish I looked like that. Or like, oh my God, look at that life. Look at this, influencer making all this money, but you don't know their journey. You don't know their story. You don't know if they're happy. And maybe they're going through their own things too. So it's really hard, but I have to always consciously be like, okay, no, just focus on yourself and your journey because you're farther along than some people and you're not farther along than some people and you just have to focus on you. And then also that's why like my role as a coach is I'm at a certain point and I'm continuing to grow and heal. I'm nowhere near close to where I want to be in my journey, but I can help those that maybe are in a place that maybe I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and kind of just like put my hand out to help them come to me. And then there's people that are farther along in their journey that I'm reaching out to so they can help me, right? So I'm always learning, always looking at mentors to support. And then I want to do the same for my clients as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important is like reaching out for help and like asking and learning from other people because like the most like successful people I know, they've all had mentors. They've all asked for people for help, and I feel like there's a
Mhm.
big like belief. Like I know I had a belief where like if I had to ask for help, there's something wrong with me, and that's like embarrassing, and that means I wasn't good enough and that I failed.
Yeah, like you're weak, right? But it's opposite.
Yeah. So that's awesome that you're looking for mentors, and obviously we both chose some of the same mentors with Jason
Yeah.
and Paul Check. So that's all awesome. But so I think we've kind of covered a lot of awesome, amazing topics that I think are really interesting. What I'm going to ask you like one last question. What is one thing that you like want to share with the customer or sorry, with the listeners? Like, what is one thing that you kind of like want to leave them with? It can be like multiple things, but like, what do you think is like the most important thing they take away from our podcast here together or this episode?
I think the most important thing is if you want to change, because the only way that someone is going to change or a positive change is they have to want to. But if they want to change, don't put it off. Start today. Like start something small because a lot of people will say, I'm going to stop smoking. When I'm going to stop smoking next week, or I'm going to stop drinking, but like there's a party happening in 3 weeks, so I'm going to put it off until then. And then the goalpost is always moving, and then there's another party, and then there's something else. Just change. Just make a conscious decision to make a change today, even if it's something small, even if it's like going for a walk and like touching a tree or meditating every morning. Like if you start implementing small positive habits and then they start to grow, kind of like what I did, where I did one thing at a time. So maybe you want to quit smoking, but instead of quitting smoking right away, you decide to, do 20 minutes of exercise a day or cut out something of your diet. If you can't commit to that big change yet, that is for whatever reason you don't want to do yet, just try to do something else positive, because the more positive habits that you have in your life, the better it's going to program your mind, and then you're just going to keep going. It's like a propeller. It's going to keep pushing you forward, and it does take time. It's not something that happens overnight. It can take years, right? I mean, I'm still working. I think we're all still working on ourselves, and it's not something that just happens in a day or a week or a month. You have to be making these changes constantly.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And I feel like it's those small little actions that a lot of people kind of like ignore. Like they have these big goals, and then they're like, oh, why is that not happening? Like losing all this weight or
Mhm.
getting super strong or whatever it may be, and they kind of forget like the small actions, like waking up every day and doing a little bit of workout or going on a walk and just choosing to eat some healthy food instead of like that piece of cake or right. Like
Mhm.
it's just choosing that small little action, and those small actions build up to those big goals. So I think
And
like
then also like repetition, right? So that's why you have to make it a habit. It takes 21 days. I've heard 21 days, and I've also heard 30 days to form a habit. So you have to keep doing it. And if you start doing it as part of a self-care routine, then it does become a habit, and then that's implemented in your life, right? So that's why I do the 5 a.m. and I do the meditation. I do hypnosis before bed. So I'm doing that as part of a regular routine. So it can be just be starting with something small. I mean, even just reading, I want to read more books. I'm going to read for 15 minutes every day, something that teaches me something. Or it can be so much. There can be so many small little things that'll amount to a lot if you just start today.
perfect. Yep. Yeah, everyone start now, start building those habits, start moving towards the life that you do want. If you really do want it, then you deserve it. And you can attain it right now. Like everyone that's come on the podcast shared like how they can do it. And everyone's had different experiences, different ways of doing it. And um, you can be like just like Karen, and you can start moving step by step towards the life that you do want. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Karen. It's really been a pleasure. And I really look forward to seeing more of what of your videos you've been putting out. You've been doing some great content. If people want to find you, I'll put your descriptions or your links down in the description below. Um, just real quick, where on social media can they find you?
So on YouTube, Karen Mendell, so KarenMendell. Facebook is, you can probably also just search Karen Mendell, Self-Sabotage Coach. Instagram, K Mendell, Self-Sabotage Coach, and then TikTok is Karen Mendell Coaching. So pretty much if you search my name in any of those things, it should come up there. But I'll send the links as well.
Okay, awesome, fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you so much for having me. This was
yeah,
great.
of course. Yeah, it's been fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone. And make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe and share and leave us a comment too. We'd love to respond to any comments or any questions you guys may have. So, hope you all have a fantastic day and thank you for listening. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.